order. Ripperger. Parrot. Parrot. Oh, present. It's okay. Haynes.
Here.
Gibbons. Ryan.
Here.
Freeberg. Held. Heller. And Gomer. Okay. I get a motion to approve the agenda for this May 16th meeting. Second? I'll take it. All in favor? Aye. Right. And a motion to approve the minutes of the April 18th meeting.
To approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, public comment.
I'll wait till the end. I'll get you at the end. Unless you wanted to talk about something else, I don't want to stop you.
Okay, so no public comment. Old business, consider the recommendations regarding an amendment to the city code related to the snow emergency regulations in downtown.
So I won't go over everything that we discussed at the last meeting. I think everybody's got a good grip on that, but at your last meeting, you did ask us to reach out to businesses who were open past 10 p.m. to get feedback on the proposed changes. We did send an email, I think last week, just asking for comments by yesterday. And I've given everybody just a copy of the comments that we've gotten back. I would summarize them all to say, I think of the 4 comments we got back, 2 of them were completely okay with it. 1 just was okay with it, but they were hopeful that snow removal crews and the police department would try to make contact with businesses if cars are parked in the square rather than go right to towing vehicles. Yeah, and then the last business, which was the Elks Lodge, I think they were a little bit more against the change, and we had a conversation that went back and forth. I responded in an email, and about 2 days later get something back from them. But I'm not 100% clear on that one, just because we didn't have too much information from them other than, you know, they've got sometimes that they rent their lodge out for events, and the 10 p.m. closing time could interfere with their events that they have there. But I
Comment on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes they have a poker tournament and they'll have 100 people. And at 10 o'clock, there's still maybe 80 people playing. So in that scenario, where do all those people go and how do they do that?
Yeah, again, it's from my standpoint, if there's a snow event that's going on and the outside chance there's a snow event going on, again, hopefully chances are on that minor, it's finding those public parking lots and parking in those, because those ones are still open. We're not closing those off. It's just street parking.
So then that would be when communication would need to happen, like Jesse said in his email, hey, this is going to happen now.
Yep, and we do that. And I mean, that's something that I think just perspective, anytime we have a snow event coming up and there is a snow emergency, there is a boatload of communication that goes out. In fact, it's written in the code that the police department has to communicate all of that stuff out through various channels. So yeah, the communication would still be there.
Typically, there's a heads up of we have a snow event coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually,
Ordinance
I was
could
gonna
go
say
into
it's-
effect at this time.
it's usually a good 24 hours ahead of time. I think that we're putting stuff out when that does go into effect. There has been times, you know, where it doesn't look like we're gonna get hit, and then in the last day, you know, a storm system shifts and we're putting that out a little bit later. But I'd say typically it's, you know, it's at least a day ahead of time that stuff is getting out. So yeah, again, we sent it to all the businesses on the square that are open past 10, and just generally, I would say the comments that we did get back from the 4 were okay, other than the Elks Lodge, and they were the only ones that did have some opposition to it.
How do you feel on this?
Businesses that are open after 10 don't care. Like I said last time, it doesn't affect me. I just didn't want to hurt, you know.
Yeah.
So if they don't think it's going to hurt them, then
I think it's just a matter of communication, and I think the good that it outweighs for our city workers for the snow removal, and I think it really ups our chance of that actual snow removal.
I think
Pushing of the snow.
reading these, I think everyone does want to give city crew more time.
Yeah.
Reading these, even the people that are hesitant about, okay, what do I do on a Friday night? What do I do on a Saturday night? Still, everyone wants to give city crew more time.
I know, obviously huge advantages of being in a district and sharing walls with your neighboring businesses. There are some inconveniences though, and it's something we all choose as business owners to be sharing walls, sharing different hours, different ideas, different goals. So it's just fine. Things like this, I think just find it benefits the city. It benefits those 8 a.m. businesses that are going to open. It may pinch us bar owners a little bit, but the greater good, I think it's a good.
It sets them up for Saturday if it happened on a Friday, if it happens on a Friday. And
Yeah.
As long as it's communicated clearly and early enough, I think it's okay. About how you present things too, I believe.
Okay, can I get a motion to do a formal recommendation to the council to move forward with this? Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. New business, consider a recommendation of a special event application for Ridiculous Days submitted by the Indianola Downtown Merchant. Did everybody get a chance to look at that? About like a 7 a.m. to a 3 p.m. complete square closure with the fingers off the square.
I have some concerns, I will say,
I have some concerns as well.
especially with our new construction going on.
And potentially having 3 alleys out of commission by that
I
time.
just don't, I thought we were setting up our new square so that the east side would be used for shutting that down and using that for events. I would be good with that entire street. But it's closing. I mean, you can't use Howard and you're not gonna be able to use Buxton soon. And I can hardly get to my store. So I can't imagine closing the entire square.
Yeah.
Cause it's my understanding the alleys aren't gonna be done for months.
Yeah, and on the alley discussion, I'm just looking at the date, I can assure you that the west alley would not be started by then. I mean, we're probably looking at the soonest that one would start would be sometime in July, so.
The east one?
East one at this point is on hold for just with the new plan that's in place for the city hall stuff over here, so I don't think we're gonna do that one this year.
I just don't think we can take those fingers away from the parking at a minimum.
There's nowhere to go.
And that just ups everybody's walk so much that if you close all of those side streets off too. One thing for the entire downtown to be closed, but I think it's a lot.
Yeah, because the only options would be side streets farther away and regions.
And for retail, that's the entire day. That's their entire hours of operation.
What day is Ridiculous Days?
June 20.
I think that's the idea for retail is to bring more people down. So I don't think they're really against it. That's why the Indianola Downtown Merchants Group is putting this on. Because most of them want it closed for more people to be downtown.
But if they can't get to our stores, it's a problem. I'm all for the event,
But
but I,
everybody during those events walks in. So the parking is irrelevant. When you put on an event, everybody walks in, they know they're walking in, and there's thousands of people down there. They were last year. I don't have any reason to believe they wouldn't be this year.
Like, was Ridiculous Days, the whole square closed off last year too?
No, because there was
Streets were
construction on
closed.
one side.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it was just Salem and then Finger by Page Turners last year.
Ashland had construction on it. Right,
Yeah.
Marvin?
Yeah,
Our
in front
street
of you
was
guys.
closed, yeah.
You guys were closed off last year.
What is the act? It was kind of vague on what the activities are of why the streets need to be closed. Are we talking?
Safety for children
Safety.
is always my,
And there's games on every corner is what they're proposing. Businesses can put stuff outside, host their own games, host their own grab and go food.
as a parent, I love I love when the streets are closed. I love that my kids and I, we can run around, have a good time at all this stuff and not have to worry about vehicles or some
Yeah.
teenager looking down at their phone.
It's the only safe way to do any event. I mean, I agree, the fingers don't probably necessarily have to be closed. But if you're gonna do games on every corner, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Fingers, if the square is closed and the fingers are open, you can't really drive down them anyways, right?
Right.
You can't.
Parallel park, yeah.
I feel like that's how many, I mean, each finger there, let's say it's 15 parking spots.
Well, and looking at it too. It looks like the fingers that they have closed, other than the Salem block between Buxton and B, that one is a full closure, but the other ones are, it looks like half closures of the fingers. And then, so if I go through this really quick, if we're on the north side going north of Ashland, neither of those two fingers are closed. Now west of Buxton on Ashland, from Buxton to halfway, so I think to that parking lot there, that's closed. On Salem, from Buxton to B Street, full closure. South from Salem on Buxton, that wouldn't be closed at all, but then Howard from Salem down to First would be half closed.
I'm lost.
Sorry, yeah. Hey,
Can we pull up the event map on the screen?
Yeah.
Down here.
They did
what
have,
do I have to hit for that?
So your two fingers are are open
The function what?
Function, Windows K.
by roots.
Okay, that's right.
These are closed for construction anyway, so.
That doesn't matter anyway.
You said Windows K?
K is in,
It's half. Half.
Where the fingers are.
Really, the only full finger that's closed is the one in front of me. The other ones are all half or not at all. Half in front of Roots, half in front of Page Turners, not at all in front of Mojo's and the Zoo, half in front of Willow Moon. And then like you said, your two fingers are closed off for the alley.
Yeah, I don't know
Already.
how long they will be.
same thing.
I mean, I can see for the safety issues, okay, close all 4 right around the square, but the fingers still I question. You think of it?
what's that? I do question the fingers a little bit. And I understand the traffic for the event specifically, good, but then if your business has outside traffic or, a different purpose, it does make it inconvenient to get to you that day with the fingers closed. And, thinking about Faneros, their parking's impacted. Well, the construction in that north alley hasn't been too bad, but that's their main drive. Would that be inconvenient to have that closed off to them? You have the older crew that comes in on a Saturday morning. They're not gonna be able to drive into there. I don't know.
Just be different shoppers though that weekend, maybe not your typical older people who are going shopping Saturday morning. It's different people. Anytime I go to an event, Drake Relays, State Fair, Farmers Market, I definitely plan on walking a few blocks.
And I think the events are great. I love the events, but being somebody that sat on the streetscape project, months and months of planning with engineers, this downtown area is more pedestrian friendly. And that was the whole goal is,
Still can't do it though. The sidewalks are not wide enough to close streets. It's too dangerous. Every event, whether it be the Halloween costume party, whatever. There's no way you could feasibly do those with an open street. No way. I mean, go for it. Smack a kid. We'll be right back here and we'll go, yeah, we should have done something different.
No,
You don't want to do that. I mean, you have to have sections completely closed and I mean, I don't know, we're making decisions for businesses that aren't even ours, like Faneros and that. It's like they've gotten the emails on ridiculous days from this merchants group. Everybody that's on the square has these emails. They've seen these maps. I think it's up to them to chime in. I mean, we're all chiming in on our behalf. You've expressed your concern about parking in front of your business. Awesome. Like us making decisions on closing in front of Faneros. They might say, heck yeah, close it, because I'm gonna have 500 people getting lunch that day. I mean, we can't make the decision to say that their parking is important to them. You know, I can only say it in front of my business.
Just need access to my back door. Door.
Right. So I mean, I mean, you know, the merchants group has done their due diligence and everybody is on these emails. You guys all probably have seen them, maybe with the exception of you, because you're a resident rather than a business owner, but I mean, you guys have all seen them. And if you don't, I think that's on you for deleting the email, you know, you should be well informed on what other groups are doing, and if you're not, I think sit back and just go on, I hope it's great, let's see how I can market and advertise and grab these crowds of people.
I'm all for the event. I think it's great to, and I fully support it. I'm just concerned about those finger streets. I mean, and I can support closing all the streets around the square. I just worry about, because I hear every single day still, and I hate talking about parking because it's getting so old. But I still, every day, somebody comes into my store and complains about how far they had to walk or how they can't get to me. And I'm always positive and bite my tongue because that's what we do as business owners is get through it, but.
And I shop the square, eat on the square, do all the square, and I know, I'm sure everybody on this commission hears the voices, and that's what we're for. We're part of the square. We're all part of the downtown area. We hear the voices. I've been lucky enough that I've been added to a parking task force. Thank you, Charlie. And it's just my greatest pride to serve on that. And you get to spend an hour and a half once every couple of weeks talking about parking, and that's the big concern. And yeah, I just have to be mindful of this.
Bless you for doing that. It's not a fun topic.
It's not.
It's not getting better.
Really something I know I've talked with you and the city manager. It's really something I'm hoping when we do have the region's property, that we don't decorate it in trees and artwork, that we keep it parking. Has to remain parking. Cannot lose that parking.
Yeah, and I know the project's goal on that is to make sure that we have a net positive parking in the end, whatever we're doing, so.
But that's a beautiful plan, but it's a long ways down the road. We need to do something that's immediate. My opinion. So. I don't know how we handle this then. What do you think, Rob?
Well, so what's the, reading? Never mind. Reading something else.
I guess I just feel like. I feel like we have to go back to the original reason we did the whole downtown renovation project, like one of you guys were saying, I think. And I could have sworn that we were trying to consolidate events to that front of the courthouse on the east side of the courthouse there. That was our original intention, was so that we could have event space there when we had events, so as to not disturb the rest of it. I don't know why that changed over the years. I might have missed.
I think that works for certain events, but I mean, you couldn't do like the children's costume thing there. You couldn't do some of the other events that have been held up there. I mean, it's just one street. Then it's also like, okay, well, what if, you know, your business wants to do something in front of your street and close that street? Well, the whole idea is you're doing the legwork, you're putting in the time, the effort, the organization to help it benefit you and your street. Shouldn't be forced to have to put it on the other side of the square and move all your stuff over there, because some of us quite frankly can't do that.
Right.
You know, so I think, you know, yeah, if they have an event that can be fit in that, perfect. But I just don't think it works.
Yeah, if it's larger, I guess.
Well, I think that's the whole idea of this, is like trying to get everybody some community buy-in and participate in everything. And I mean, you'll never get that. You'll never get 100% participation. That's the whole idea, you know, if you close down the whole square, then everybody has an equal opportunity to participate. If you only close off half of it, then really only the people that are in that half or that quarter are really gonna be the only ones that can participate in it. You know, I mean, we've seen it with a few other events, you know, local funds gotten left out a couple times, and like, they were like, yep, we were dead because there was nobody down here. Part of that was because of the street closure, but you could walk there. It's because it wasn't part of the closed part, nobody did. You know, they're all enjoying the stuff that's on the closed part, not going over to the place that's not closed, because that's not as fun.
But for ridiculous days, isn't it games and such? And it's like,
I think it's whatever people wanna do, that's the whole point. You know, I mean, way back in the day, it used to just be like, you came up with whatever you wanted to do, crazy, what, it didn't matter. You know, a sale, a this, a game, or whatever. That was the whole point of it, the get-go, I think.
but stores, I mean, I grew up on ridiculous days from a little kid.
Raised in bathtubs.
Yeah, I used to always be in the pet golf parade. But I mean, I rode my bike up there, I remember, but stores always just had stuff out front of on their sidewalk. I mean, I remember going to that myself, but.
I just
don't
went
know.
to, I just went to Pella for Tulip Time, and I mean, how many thousands of visitors do they have in their downtown area? What, the south side of the square was closed. Maybe half of the west side was closed for food stands. Maybe half of one of the other streets was closed. Everything else was open for normal pedestrian parking, and it's not the games and it's not stuff like that.
I think that one side's a state highway,
Oh, so they can't close that. Oh.
main road you come in on, that's
Comes around
a
the
state
side.
highway.
Oh, okay, on the north side. Yeah, I don't,
I don't think they can, so.
Like, are there any kind of, is there any kind of business the courthouse does on a Saturday? Any kind of emergency business, deliveries or anything like that, prisoner transfers?
That would be the only thing I would think would just be transfers on that, but I honestly don't know for sure, so. Again, I know. Doug, I think you're part of the group, but I think that communication with the courthouse between the merchants and the county is there.
I didn't write this up, so I have no idea. I'm sure they have in other events just said we have to have emergency access for an ambulance and like a cop car, so.
And I know last year, there was one issue last year where I think it was the phone party hooked up to the county building for water rather than one of our sources, but we got through that, so,
$15.
yeah.
So, I guess it would help me, figure out how I would like to vote on this, if I could have an update on the alley construction.
Yeah,
I don't feel like we have a lot of communication about that. I learn a lot from the workers that try to help me navigate walking through the mud.
so right now we are on the south alley at a standstill because we were waiting for Mid-American to relocate some gas services and a gas man that's in there. Just this morning, we finally got their engineer documents over to us to review, and I'm hopeful that our staff can review them here yet this morning and just give them the go ahead to move forward on that. They've indicated that they think late May, early June is probably when they'd get started on that, and then it takes 2 weeks from there. After that, then our crew can get back in and start putting the roads and the parking lots back together. That's probably gonna take about a month, I would say, to get that done, but that's also very weather dependent, and we're in a pretty wet time right now, so we'll see how all of that plays out. On the north alley, we're still on schedule. The hope is with Mid-Am, and I don't have any communication from them yet, is that now they move into designing and relocating the north alley. So when they're done doing the south alley, they can then just roll right over to the north alley and get that done. And then that can be, roughly about a month behind the other alley, which is what our hope was the whole time, so.
So you're looking at July or August?
On the north alley? Yeah, probably. Would say I think so. Our hope is to get that south alley done and the parking lot done before we go over to the west side. We're gonna be pretty close on that, so there might be a week or two where we have to worry about maybe having both of those closed until we get the other one open, just because obviously we need to have the work done before we hit winter this year. North alley doesn't have a parking lot, so that one's just a little bit easier, and I think the timeline on that's gonna be a lot quicker.
So, does that mean that Howard and Buxton will continue to be closed?
Where they're closed at right now, that should only be, so those are for connections that we're making on Howard. It's a connection that we need to make on a storm sewer line. That's getting wrapped up. The issue we have on Howard right now is because of where Warren County Oil used to be. There's a lot of contaminated soil in the ground right there, and they've got to haul that out and put new soil in. That's just what the DNR requires, and we're going through that process right now of getting that out. that should be wrapped up here pretty quick. And then IMU's just got to get across there with their underground for the electricity. So that should be maybe another couple weeks, I would say. And then on Buxton, that is to get the water main across there. They've got to tie into the water main on the other side of the street. That's going to be pretty quick, 2 to 3 weeks probably on that as well. So I think both of those would be open for this event, and we've communicated this event to them on that. So that's been kind of the timeline, is to make sure that before we have any big events on the square, such as Ridiculous Days, that those corridors are completely back open.
Okay, and let me just clarify here. You said that Mid-American would come up with a plan. Do they not have a plan now because they didn't know what they were gonna get into when they got in there? Because I'm like, why do you do a construction project? without-
I don't want to speak on their behalf because I don't know. I can just tell you that the plans that we have for the alleys were given to them multiple times throughout the process, 2019, 2020, when we were getting close to actually hiring the design out, they were given plans. We then started communicating them with again last year when we knew we were running into problems in other areas on the square and saying, hey, we know you're in these areas, or we're coming in through these alleys. Here's the documents, you need to come up with a plan. Why they didn't come up with a plan in a timely manner, really know there was a lot of communication back and forth to make sure that they had them and they were aware of it, and they were. But it wasn't until we got into the alleys and then realized, okay, here's where the lines actually are, because, we can't see in the ground to know exactly where they are, that, yeah, we do have a lot of conflicts and these need to be taken care of.
I mean, I feel you don't know what you're getting into when you open up those old alleys. I do understand that, but it does concern me that if Mid-American didn't have a good plan, why did we make a hot mess before we had a plan? In my life, I grew up with, you measure twice and you cut once. So I don't think that was followed in this. And
Yeah,
so
it's
disturbing because it's affected my business.
It's for us though, there's a lot of work that can be done while we're waiting on them. So we're able to keep it on schedule for the most part. And again, right now, it's just the South Alley that's hitting the only delay that we're going to hopefully see through this process. I think we're pretty confident that the North Alley should still kind of go off in the same time frame.
And will those utility poles be down and those lines be buried, or?
Not until IMU comes through and pulls it. So IMU right now is putting in all the underground conduit for that. They'll then come in next year and pull the wire through and then take the poles down. So that's not happening this year. That would happen in next year's. I think next year.
Under construction again?
No, and it won't be closure. They're not, no, they're not. It's pretty simple. Again, they have all the infrastructure in. All they literally have to do is pull wires through pipe and then take the poles down. So, you're gonna have some activity going on in there, but it's not gonna be a full.
It'll be open. Sorry, it's just a lot. We've lived through a lot, so.
I did have one other question. So like the Halloween event that Doug mentioned and like the Christmas event that we have on the square, are the breweries closed during those events too in the past, or is it just only the square, main square?
You're talking like before the construction started, how did those go? I can't speak of that because since I've been here, the square's pretty much been under construction, so I don't know how.
You guys remember?
Like before construction, or?
I think
Yeah,
the fingers were for the Indians Halloween party thing.
I think they were half.
Yeah, they've always
After
kind of
the
had
alleys.
those signs.
Yeah.
At least so the intersection is protected.
Correct. Intersection was protected, but the alley, where the garage is, that alley, they would just have barricades till there, and then you could slip in an alley if you needed to, or you could, still get to your business. Just like the map was.
I still go back to you're worth the walk. Side streets, I know we work off other people that have parking, like Dollar General with the fire station thing. I witnessed the manager outside her door crying. Do people park is the theater parking lot south, the movie theater, is that public or is that the
Yep,
theaters?
that's public.
That's public, okay.
You're talking the one between the two churches? Yeah, no,
So that's public parking.
so we don't own it, we lease it for public parking.
Or at least I
People
know.
take over family video parking. I don't even know what that's about, but people park there, people park on the side streets. It's
When are the signs getting put up on the square? The ones that were in the original plan to show like parking lots, all that other stuff.
We're working through that right now. So You're talking like the
Ones that are-
wayfinding and placemaking, the permanent ones. So there was only, there was directional signage off the highways for those. So we don't have those in a contract yet. What we've been doing has been trying to find grant funding to help pay for those. So we've got a few pending applications right now.
Are there gonna be any on the square that point like, you know, on Salem, Buxton, Ashland, and Howard?
That's the parking.
So the outside where the
So one
parking
of the,
usually is.
one of the things that we've talked about in our parking task force that we've had one meeting of so far is getting better signage when you're coming into the square to show where the public parking lots are. I mean, we have them identified with parking signs at the
Those are
end of
awesome.
those parking lots, but no wayfinding to get to those parking
Yeah,
lots.
so if you're circling the square and you're like, there's no parking,
Yep.
you have no idea you are literally
So we
100
just,
feet from.
that was kind of something we talked about, what was it, 3-4 weeks ago now that we had that
Yeah.
meeting? And something our public works department is working on.
Cause I think you could solve a lot of your parking problems
It would
with
help.
just signage, cause then seriously, people circle a square twice and they're like, screw it. They don't even realize there's 20 spots,
Yeah.
literally
It's all
feet
about-
away.
All about communication.
Yep.
Well, and you
Everything
see when
boils down to it.
you go to downtown Des Moines, that's what I do. I'm not looking at my GPS. I'm like, okay, as soon as you guys see a parking sign, let them know. And
I guess I just wish it was something uniform that we had in place for all events, like this is what you get to close down when you have an event on the square. Guess that's what I make things a lot easier. Nobody would have questions. This is what we do every time. And these are the events we do it for.
Right.
Yeah, but I'd still like to see it specialized too, like I said. I mean, if anybody wants to do a little street party in front of their business, you know, you and the Elks, like I would totally be game for it. Like, heck yeah, you guys want to close off just Ashland? Awesome. Probably be down there that night, whatever it's for. You know, I think that's what makes kind of our square fun and unique is like you can partner and do mini events with your neighbors. But like, yeah, I think for events over X amount of estimated people, yeah, probably it should just kind of be uniform to solve some of this, but I'd like to see some more of the little events, you know, but just my opinion.
I think with the alley construction and the limited spots, where I'm standing on this, is I approve the actual square closures, but I think for the time being, until construction ceases, we cannot do any additional street closure. That's just my opinion. That's kind of where I stand on it.
I agree. I'm all for closing all the streets to make it safe for the kids. I don't want any accidents. But I agree, until we're done with construction, I think it's hard to close more.
And really quick, just because I got somebody who texted me on this too, I guess the mayor's youth council is working on something where they're gonna have some golf carts that they're gonna be able to transport people back and forth from parking lots to the square for this event. So that's one thing. And then there's the empty lot across from City Hall here where that house previously was just torn down that they're gonna utilize for parking for the event as well. So.
And I got a message just now too, that Lee Adams is willing to
Yeah.
have a public park. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right across the street here.
Okay. I don't know. I wish there was more of a map of what's gonna happen in the streets, how full the streets are going to be with activity. Anybody else?
I think on those finger streets, it's gonna be pretty hard to park. I think maybe no parking on one side and parking allowed on one side, because otherwise everyone's gonna have to make at least a 3-point turn to get out of there. There's
like
no
they're
room
doing
to
right
make a
now by the
U-turn.
radio station.
Yeah.
They still park in there, but then they have to do, like you said, a 6-point turn to get around.
Yeah, if you left
Excellent
one
point.
side for parking and then closed off the other side to park, and a lot of cars will be able to make a U-turn. Otherwise, they're gonna be in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Now I'm clear.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, we've done it, I know with RVTV, and that was just because I worked on that one. I know we did that in a few with those half blocks and it didn't seem to be an issue with people and we had a lot of people parked down there too, so. I think they were all adequately getting out of there, but at the same time, I can tell you I was not watching it necessarily, so.
For RVTV, you just did the square. do the.
There was a few of the fingers that were closed off too in each direction. I'm trying to remember exactly how we did it. All of Salem was closed and then half blocks on everything else.
But that other portion was under construction at the time.
Yes. There, that was a map right there. Thank you, Jason.
You ask and it appears.
No, I appreciate the effort, but I'm this new task force of parking because it has been an increased conversation and issue. I'm trying to be sensitive to that too, but also knowing that a lot of people that have had the parking issues are part of the planning process for Ridiculous Day. So it's hard to know where they stand on the parking.
That's what's hard about this commission too, is that we all need each other. I believe in working together and supporting each other. And I don't like it if we're pitted against each other in a situation when it comes to parking or, cause I want everybody across from me around the corner. I mean, I want everybody to be successful. So that's where I don't ever want to hurt feelings. I just want what's best for everybody as a.
Yeah, and that's where the parking, Charlie, plug your ears. Where the parking issue really should be solved by the city, not by the business owners, because it's really the city's choice how the spaces are used, not ours, because everybody has a different use, a different time they need those spots, and it just doesn't work. It's either parking is important and it's all for cars, or parking is not important and we can use it for everything.
That's why I think this upcoming project with Regions
Oh,
is huge.
I think it'll be great if they do it the way that they initially said, because it could add a ton of spots and a great
Add so much
corridor that like you can easily see, hey, there's parking right there. Awesome, cool. But
But that,
Yeah,
again, that's a
I think
long ways down the road.
I think it's a city thing because like you just
But you're
said, I
talking
hate,
about
I
it
hate sitting in these.
now, so that's why I'm like, don't you dare put a giant yard there with a sculpture.
I hate sitting in these meetings, talking about parking, and then going to another meeting, talking about parking, and going to another thing, talking about parking, getting emails. Every business I walk into, they talk about parking. It's crazy. It is.
And
Like,
you're right,
Crazy.
it shouldn't be the business owner's decision.
No,
It
because-
falls back on the city.
Because it's pitting people against each other in our downtown district.
I'm looking at my neighbor and they're like, boy, I could really use those spots. And then that person's like, well, I could use those spots. And then it's like the Spider-Man meme where everybody's pointing at each other, It's like
Yeah.
the city needs to figure it out. And then the business
Fix it.
owners will decide, is this for me or not? Cause I can move my business if I don't want it to be pedestrian friendly or if, whatever. But it kind of needs to come because this like picking and choosing, between uses and people and whatever. It's not a great policy because you're setting a precedent one way or the other, It's like the who which isn't good. I mean, it's not good for businesses. It's not good for it's not a good look for the city either.
It doesn't promote a sense of community, and I think that's what we need to be all about.
Right, totally.
And this is a perfect example because I support the event. I'll be open during the event. I want as many people to come as well. And I want Brickhouse to be successful that day. And, I want everybody to be successful, but I can only speak what's good for my business personally, but that's not fair. That's why I don't like to make these decisions.
Let's find the positive in the 2 blocks, like how many parking spots do we have? Like Worth the Walk is a great little slogan, but it tells me instantly, I got
No place to park.
negative. So
Why
if
is
I
it
have
negative?
if I have 210 parking spots within 2 blocks, that's positive. I got 210 parking spots right here within 2 blocks.
And maybe that needs to be our tagline,
How
something.
many parking lots do we have behind the theater, behind Regions, there's a lot.
That we have,
There's a ton.
that we have public parking on.
How many spots? And there's,
Give me a second, I can do the math.
yeah. Let's talk about that.
I agree with Rob. I think we have to create a
I think
standard.
because we want
has-
those signs. We want
Yes.
those signs because we know how much there is parking. I don't know, that's why I just go downstairs. Just walk down. I'm not part of this.
I think there needs to be a standard and a maximum ask for a street closure. And I know this is gonna be a good, great, big event. I just think it's a lot of interruption to something that we have a lot of interruption in already. That's just my opinion.
Last year's ridiculous days, did it go into the?
Yeah, it went to the fingers and they shut them all the way down. Like for instance, in front of Roots or Krause's, that whole thing was shut down to half. To the alley, to the square was nothing, no cars, nothing, just games and people. And back,
I have to deal with interruptions now till the end of time, because there's always gonna be construction, there's always gonna be updates. You know, city just bought that other stuff, we're looking at 2 to 3 years, there's gonna be another major interruption. It's like, we can't keep using those as excuses to not do things. And I think we have been using construction as an excuse. It's like, well, you know, we've already had these disruptions, blah, blah, it's hard. Find a way to make it not hard. Find a way to get other people down here. You know, because you're gonna be dealing with it one way or another for the next 5 years. So it's like, okay, we're just not gonna do anything for 5 years. This will be fun.
Really
Fun
quick.
town to live in. I guess I'll just go to Des Moines again. And that's how we got here in the first place. So,
I agree. And I mean, for the record, I mean, in my business, I've never felt the strains of parking. I will say our number one month that we've ever had in the history of our 12 years of business is the October of streetscape, when our front sidewalk and street was closed. We pivoted, we directed people to public parking, and it was our number one month of sales that we have ever had. We have not beat it. In my business, I don't have a parking issue, but I understand in other businesses there are, which is why we're here. We're here to represent everybody. So it's just, there's a lot of contradiction of, there's not enough parking, but let's close all of this where there is parking. So it's hard for me to represent all of the people when there's so much contradiction. What do we want? Do we want formality? Do we want pedestrians? Do we want street closures? I don't know.
Really quick to answer the question on the parking spaces within a block. You can see it up on the map here, all those Ps, those are the public parking lots. So the south one not be open for this event. It's just, that's not gonna happen. But the other parking lots, the other 5 that are available, that's 292 parking spaces in those 5 parking lots. So if we had the south one in, when that is back open, that's about 330.
Let's come up with a marketing campaign for that.
Yeah, they should advertise anything that you put out about whatever event, hooked right next to it, pictured right next to it, should be something about this parking. I mean,
you know,
the
downtown,
citizens and the people who are gonna participate will eventually get used to it. It will happen.
you know, downtown merchants has printed maps that have parking, just like this. And they're free for any business to pick up and put on their counter.
And that's something the task force that we put together as well that we discussed. It's, you know, how do we inform people? How do we market it? What type of campaigning do we do on this to show, you know, yeah, there's on-street parking in front of these businesses, but we also have all of these parking lots within a block, maybe 2 blocks at most, that have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of available parking spaces.
I think you need signs on the square somewhere that just have the big P with an
Even if,
arrow.
yeah, even if they're temporary.
Yeah,
for
big
this.
P with an arrow. And just all the time. I think you need to have
No,
4
we're-
signs.
Getting worked on, so.
Yeah, point them in the north, south, east, west directions, because then when you're circling around the square, you can be like, oh, giant P. Turn, oh, hey, there's 15 spots. That was easy. And if you make the theater pulls the experience easy,
Yeah.
then they'll come back. You make it hard where they're like circling around. I'm lost, screw it, I'm going to Walmart. That's easy. I mean, we're in such an instantaneous, easy society right now.
Sad.
You can't make it take longer than 30 seconds to find your spot, because people will give up, they'll move on to the next thing. Thanks, Twitter. But yeah, you know, I mean, that's how it is.
It is, and it's really sad.
So if you can go around every side of the square, see a big P with an arrow, you're gonna be out of your car in 30 seconds, into that business in less than a minute 30. Rock and roll, man. It's a great experience.
It's one of the discussions we've had, because that parking lot there, that's at the bottom of the page, the one between the 2 churches. I mean, if anybody's ever driven past that on a day like today, any normal day, like there's nobody parking.
There's 3 cars on it.
that's one thing that we've always pointed out is there is available parking. It's just people aren't parking there. So that's where we got into the discussion on, do we do better on wayfinding to get to these parking lots? So.
It's not an event that you can go to. You don't walk a little bit. The balloons, like I said, all the state track stuff that's happening right now, Drake's baseball games, softball games, a busy day at the mall, you're gonna walk and you're gonna be okay.
Covered Bridge Festival, you park in a grass lot that somebody owns 2 blocks away. A grass lot with 100 and some things in it, and then you get into the Covered Bridge Festival. You know, I mean, everybody walks for these things. Nobody expects to park in front.
Another thing about this is, Charlie, we've debated these 4 or 5 times. We've manipulated a request and then it goes to council and they don't listen to our request. So are we spinning our wheels, wasting our time? Is council gonna say, yep, do it all? Should we just say, yep, let's do it all? Where are we at on that?
I can't.
Yeah, you can't, yeah, but that's a real possibility too, so.
It depends on who's driving the crazy days and where their business is located and which ones they're gonna willing to give up and which ones they're not willing. to.
Right, and I know, I mean, for Doug's sake, he wants Salem done. For Erica's sake, she wants the other end of Salem done. So if it benefits them, and this is what the majority of the group, that the communication has gone out to, if this is what they've came up with.
They want.
Well, I think that's your opportunity too, as business owners. You know, if the merchants group is putting on stuff, that's your opportunity to speak your voice and whatever before this even comes to the table, because, you know, go to some of those meetings, go to the planning meeting before they even come up with a map. Say, hey, you know what, I would really prefer if you just closed these off, you know? Don't wait until they've gone through all the work, the proposal, the organization, the events. They've got, you know, 15, 20 businesses already on the thing, and then you're like, that really doesn't work for me. Well, where were you the last 3 months when this was in the planning stages? You've all been on the emails.
I understand that. I understand.
I know we don't all have time, but it's like, when this is coming up, throw your hat in. Or at least your opinion, you know, like, don't sit here and then like slam down on somebody else's work that they've been, you know, not somebody individual, but like it's an entire group of people. There's 20 or 30 people involved in this event, planning wise. So it's like,
I
where
don't
was
think
your,
anybody's
where was your
slamming it
opinion?
down though.
No, I
think they're
know,
just
but-
raising you know. that's what
I
we're trying to
understand,
work together.
but the street closure thing has come up. I heard about it in these merchant meetings that I go to, and I'm not on the board of those. I go there as a merchant, you know? I knew about this street closure thing 3 months ago. I know it was in the emails, or at least at the meeting. So like, if you want to know about some of these events that are in planning, get those emails, go to those meetings, so then you can be a part of it, you know? If you want to be. If you don't want to be, that's fine. Like, you don't have to be a part of everything. I'm not a part of everything. I don't want to be.
It gets to be too much.
Yeah,
It gets to be
I mean-
too much. I mean, you look around this table and there's people around this table involved. And that's why we're here again, because we all have fingers in school board and chamber, and everybody has their parts. Everybody has their things that they do. Downtown Merchants has their thing that they do, and I think the people that are on board show up and they do it. A lot of the other businesses are just subsequent to the events planned, and I think that's ultimately what we're trying to represent. With it being a Saturday morning, where do we stand on it? What do we think? Are we for it? Are we against it? I think everybody needs to go around, say what version they are, and then we need to vote on it. Otherwise, I mean, we're gonna take 20 more of these in the future on this board. And we all have to voice our opinion and try to come up with a collective idea and a recommendation for the council. Whether the council goes with that recommendation or not, we can't spend 30 minutes on it though.
I still think it's case by case though. I mean, still don't think you can just say, hey, you're doing an event, this is what it is. It's like, well, what if I don't want to do an event that big?
Right, yeah.
I mean, yeah, if like West Hill was doing an event, no way, I'm not gonna do the whole square. It's like,
I just wanna do an ice cream social at the corner sundry.
yeah. Right there, yeah, or whatever.
I wanna do it on the east side, because that's where all the events are supposed to be. I wanna do it right in front of our center, you know what I mean?
Right.
Whatever it
We
is.
can do that, like, we can block off parking spaces in front of our business.
Yeah.
We have the ability to do that.
I like the flexibility.
Yeah.
I know that
So for this event application, let's go around the table, say you're in favor of the whole closure, you're in favor of the whole closure, everybody kind of state where you are on it, and let's try and come up with a collective idea. Tim,
I say, for this many people in a big event like that, then close it all.
I agree. I'm, for this event specifically, well, any event really, I'm okay with the entire square being closed and those specific fingers that they have marked out. Some the whole, some half, some not at all. I think that looks great. And I'm sure they put in the time and thought and discussion just as we are when making that map, so. I'm okay with that.
We're talking about closing the square and the fingers also.
yep, everything highlighted on the map.
I think I would agree with that. We're not gonna gain that much parking, especially if we close one half of the finger. We're gonna gain less than 20 parking spots around the square. I'd say go for it.
Functionally looking at this map, the head organizers and planners benefit from the side streets being closed to where the X's go. So because of their effort in the event, I am willing to approve it.
I second what Amanda just said.
I think it's obvious. I'm good with the map.
I don't know. It just disturbs me that we're sitting here doing this for so long and the original plan of square was for a different reason, but I'll go with the rest of the board on this. That's fine.
I agree with what you're saying too. I'm torn because I don't know, we talk a lot about parking and it gets old. But
There's gotta be something
there
that
has to be some.
other communities can do it, we can do it too.
So is there any other discussion on this application? We can move on from the
I'm-
parking.
I motion to approve this, and our next agenda we come up with, we further discuss some kind of, I'm not gonna call it a standard, because every individual be individualized, but some kind of this is what we're willing to do for street closures. It can't exceed this. If you need the arms, then a street opens up. If you need this, we're only willing to close off X amount of feet of street closures for a event.
Let's get through the motion.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve downtown merchant street closure?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Maybe it's not, maybe it's the, when we talk about you said not the fingers, certain streets and stuff, maybe we need to be talking about how big we're planning events, maybe the size of the event
That's
needs
where,
to be toned down.
that's where I was gonna go, and it seems to me, it's like, maybe the unknown here is just that we don't have an event map necessarily that shows where everything's gonna go and how it's going to be used. And the question is are we just arbitrarily closing down roads to close down roads? Or is there stuff that's planned in there? Now, I've had discussions outside of this. I haven't seen the map, but I know that, again, the street closures that are involved here, and I got a text message saying the same, like there's plans for those areas of the street. So they're not just arbitrarily closing anything down. But again, to help you make your decision, I think that's really what we need. And it's maybe go back and revisit our applications a little bit and put some stuff in there that says, you're going to do this, we actually need to see how the space is going to be used. I mean, numbers are hard to do. We did RVTV and it's like, you're trying to guess how many people are gonna come down there. You have no idea.
no.
And you can't predict how many people are gonna necessarily come down unless you're doing these events constantly and you have a way of counting them and figuring that out. But again, I think from your standpoint, from what I'm hearing and just taking the whole discussion in, it's you need something to show how is the space going to be used if you're going to close these areas down.
I think that's easy. I mean, would be easy to do. I mean, I've
It's very,
I've heard all the things that they're planning. So I know they have a list.
Yeah.
I mean, they could easily
yeah.
draw up a thing and attach it to this.
And the timing is always a big thing too, because you guys are a commission that meets once a month. And depending on when the applications come in, you know, there's only so many meetings that we can hit before an event. I mean, this one in particular, we're here at May 16th. You can't review this one in June and approve it because we're looking at that event happening right away. So like, this is the meeting that you have to review it by, and we just got the application in a couple weeks ago, which is a mere 2 months, you know, maybe a month and a half, 2 months before the event, which is pretty normal to get an application. And so, I mean, there is a lot of planning that goes. Anybody that's been involved in this has to know that there's a lot of planning that goes involved, and it's a lot of volunteers donating their time. But again, I think that's gonna help if we can at least have some general understanding of how the space is going to be used in the future. And I think that's just something that we'll put in our application. I'll work with the clerk's office and just, we need an event map that shows how it's going to be used.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cause I know a smaller space with more full. I think people enjoy that better.
Yeah,
Something
better.
I
full.
agree.
But things that are like sparse, if you remember, 10, 15 years ago when it went to the holiday extravaganza and stuff, it was like everything was so sparse and people would come and be like, what? Why is this whole square and you have to go here and you gotta go over here and there's nothing. It just looks like there's not a lot going on and stuff, so.
Don't forget, some of
Consolidate.
those are, yeah, you can consolidate, but some of it's also community buy-in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like a lot of those events that are trying to get put on, like the holiday thing and everything, it's like, it's the same 20 businesses doing it. It's like, there's an 89 businesses on that merchant's email list. Why is it the same 20 doing stuff? It's like, time to start getting back and like, hey, man, when I win, you win. Let's do this. Like,
But some things wouldn't be profitable for those businesses to get
Not-
involved with it.
directly.
Right.
We've done things for the children's Halloween costume thing at 10 a.m. Why are we doing that? West Hill is not benefiting.
I
a
agree.
nickel.
That's for each business owner to decide.
It is, it
not
is,
for-
correct. But I think that's part of it. You just say, hey, why am I gonna be a part of this? Well, because I think it's just great for the community.
Mhm.
We put out a thing, we do a costume guy out front, put a bowl of candy out. I had some games out front. Our doors are closed. I mean, literally locked, like you can't even come in to use the restroom that day.
Uh-huh.
But we heard numerous times from people, oh, yeah. We're going on a little date today, cause you know what? I walked by that and I saw that. They'll walk by your place and be like, you
Well,
know
I
what?
agree.
I really do need something from you, or
I agree.
likewise. So I think that mindset of, well, it doesn't benefit me it kind of needs to go away, because it's like, no, it doesn't benefit you today, this hour, but next week it probably will, or next month it probably will too. If you're constantly being seen and constantly seen as a part of it, you're gonna reap some of those rewards. The work you put in is gonna pay off. And it makes those events better. We're sitting here talking about like, well, the event's not that full. Well, what'd you do to be a part of that event? Well, I wasn't, because I didn't think it was gonna be that full. Well, that's how everybody's thinking is. You have to be a part of something for it to be full. You want it full, you gotta be a part of it. If you don't, fine, and then you can continue to complain that, well, these events don't have much. That's my opinion.
I think there's several mindsets that surround the events. I think events are great. I think a lot of people don't have the time to dedicate it to, I know hours are goofy, times that we're open are goofy, other commitments are goofy, and I don't think we should be shamed for not being part of the downtown merchants. And I think that sometimes that creates the divide in the downtown area, is a little bit of the shaming for certain businesses not being involved. And certain businesses need to pour more hours into their behind the scenes than others. And I don't think there's a problem with that.
I don't believe there's a problem with that either. I also think that those businesses, they're the ones that are very boisterous against the events, and that it's just like, they want to put all the time and stuff into it, let them organize it. Nobody said you had to organize it. Nobody said you even had to be a part of it. But if that's their thing, cool, go for it. Like, that's somebody else's yard. I don't need to. But, you know, I mean, and that's kind of my stamp. I don't do every event either. I only do the ones that I think I have time for or that seem fun to me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't do everyone. I don't even volunteer on half of them. Because same thing, I don't have the time. We're 30% understaffed right now.
Yeah.
It's like, not gonna happen, but there again, I'm not shooting it down either, because it's like, you got the time, hey, run with it. And if I have 5 minutes, jump in and do something. You know, to make your event just a little bit better. But it's like, I don't have time to dedicate to 6 meetings and set up and all tear down all this stuff. It's like, I'll do what I can when I can, but
Yes, and as long as we can all have that, I mean, like I said, sharing walls with your neighboring businesses is a lot different than just being a neighbor. When we're all interlocked, it takes a different level of understanding and tolerance of what everybody needs to survive. Okay, any other comment? Any other comments on that? Oh, consider the recommendation of a sidewalk use agreement with Page Turners.
And really quick, this one is just for a sign in front of Page Turners, trying to get
Sandwich board.
sandwich board sign, run of the mill. It's about 3 square feet total. All the normal stuff, 5 feet walking path will remain. City is named as an additional insured, all of that stuff. So don't need to go through all of these. I think they're all the same, but if there's any questions on it, I'd be happy to answer it.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Right, comments, the 2023 Iowa Downtown Forum.
Yeah, and I know we talked about these last year, and I don't know if anybody attended. I know there was a few people who went to the actual downtown conference, but the downtown forums are, I think, a really good opportunity for anybody who wants to kind of, you know, listen to the Iowa Economic Development Authority talk about kind of what works and what doesn't work across the state for downtowns, and just it's just a good discussion that takes place. So wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. If there's anybody who wants to attend any of those forums, I think the closest one this year would be Greenfield. Greenfield on June 28th. So if anybody wants to attend those, let us know. We can kind of discuss. I think they're free, first of all, but obviously mileage and stuff like that. If there's anybody that wants to go, I think we can take a look and see if the city can pay for that for any attendees. So just let me know. The offer's out there. So if anybody wants to go, just drop me an email. The other thing, Bob Kling's here with the Indianola Arts Commission. One thing that we want to get done here in the future is kind of a discussion between the Arts Commission and the Downtown Square Commission regarding the alley. That is the Buxton Alley that goes from Buxton to the west parking lot. Just so everybody here is aware, if you're not already aware, that I know that alley is in really bad condition right now, but when we get in to the west alley and the west parking lot, that alley is going to be redone. So one of the things that I think the Art Commission wanted to look at was possibly some art in that alley, some murals and things like that. And I know that's been a point of interest for the Downtown Commission. So as me and then Jackie, who is the staff person for the Arts Commission, have kind of discussed, we just want to have some joint discussion between the two commissions. So I'll let Bob kind of go on that. Like I said, they've been leading the discussion, but eventually we'll have you brought into it.
Well, first of all, right now, while I was sitting there. Giant sculpture.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. But, you know, listening to you guys, you need a slogan. Think about it. Indianola, we have more parking lots than Casey stores. You talk to the dance studios. You get some of the little kids in their little tutus, block off a couple of parking spaces in the parking lots, and you offer valet parking. They can be seriously, that they can be dancing. We have ballet. Anyway.
When you go on.
I think it's a great idea. Charlie is right. He had told me that we had put off this meeting and I forgot to change that. I'm like, damn. I went down, it's been a while back, and looked at that alley, and the first thing was, oh lordy. Cause it's long and the next thing you go is, hello, hello, hello. I mean, it's just long and narrow. You can't really get back very far and it's dark. And the one wall, well, I talked to Grant McGraw and his building is on one side and it's a brick wall. And he said, if you want to paint something on there, you know, if that's an idea, fine, as long as he gets to see what it is ahead of time. The other one is owned by the county and it's clad in metal. And I assumed there's a reason for that. And when I had to set up a meeting with the Board of Supervisors, and I met last week during their work session with them. And I was right, it's because the brick behind that is not in great shape and it's metal. If I owned that building, I'm not sure I would want that metal painted because it's gonna be a constant, you know, painting on that metal. And it's perforated, which makes it tough anyway. But and when I talked to them, the Board of Supervisors meeting, they informed me that in a few weeks, they may not own that building. So they're looking at alternatives about selling that. So we can't really do anything unless we have permission. And we don't know what's gonna happen to that building yet. So hopefully, in a few weeks, find out. But they were open to all sorts of possibilities. There are several things. It's possible you could hang things on that structurally. Lighting, you could really do some neat things, I think, with lighting down there too. So we're just kind of exploring those opportunities. But to do that, boy, yeah, and it's gonna take some money and it'll be a little longer term project because we're gonna have to, once we get everything approved, we'll put out RFQs for artists and then they have to submit whatever ideas they have. And then, it has to be selected and we have to raise money to do it. So that's one project, one of the longer term projects we're thinking about. We just can't do anything until we have permission. So I just wanted to fill you in. That's all we have.
Opportunity to kind of have the two commissions collaborate on what does happen with this alley as far as the lighting. We've talked about that, I think, with possibly doing some rope lighting or something in the three alleys. It seemed like that was the best alternative and we've been looking at that internally, but just working through all of the commissions is kind of to come up with a good plan for this alley. So
And there are lighting artists also, which really has potential.
I was just gonna say, being an artist, lover and photographer myself, immediately when I saw the reflection of the blue sky on the metal, you had lights on the other end and they were mirroring fun lights on that metal, how beautiful that would be. Yeah.
There are all sorts of possibilities. We're kind of exploring that and we want to talk to some people who are experts in the lighting industry also.
Charlie, are you talking like with your guys' commission about like overall lighting for those alleys? I know we had talked about it a few months back.
We're just kind of focused on this one right
but I
now.
think it's something we can do. I mean, yeah,
Right.
we can have that discussion because both the three alleys are something that we've
Yeah.
identified with this group, but they need to be lighted.
I'd much rather like a group like them talk about the lighting and what it looks like in those alleys than ours, because you guys that's your expertise is in the art area and stuff. So I would think you guys would know a lot better what would look correct and stuff. And
We're just kind of beginning this path, so I know more all to you guys.
I love
Thanks.
that.
And remember ballet parking.
On to something.
I think it should just be you in a tutu.
Yeah.
Oh, the cleaner. Uh-oh. Get a prettier game.
Than that, those are the items I have to discuss. So if there's anything from the commission.
Thanks for everybody else. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.